The biggest international story this time, and that is coming in from the Israel-Hamas war. Remember, day 3 means now Israel is launching a counter-strike on the Gaza Strip, where the Hamas rule currently is dominant. These Israeli airstrikes are pounding Gaza as the war between the two nations enter into day 3, trading fire also with Lebanon's Hezbollah. Israeli forces clashed with the gunmen from Hamas terror group 24 hours after the terrorist group launched a surprise attack on Israel, killing many civilians and the soldiers. Israel has started to retaliate and announced an all-out war against Hamas with a spree of explosions. Israeli airstrikes hit blocks, tunnels, also residents of Hamas officials in Gaza, killing more than 370 and 2,000 injured. Vowing to make Palestine and specifically Hamas pay an unprecedented price for the attack, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared Israel was at war and called for mass mobilization of army reserves. Remember, we are talking about innocent families that were targeted, women who were killed, paraded, specifically even soaked in blood and dead bodies.
לא נראה בישראל, ואני אדאג שזה לא יקרה יותר. הממשלה כולה מתייצבת מאחורי ההחלטה הזאת. צה"ל יפעיל מיד את כל עוצמתו כדי להשמיד את יכולות חמאס. נכה בהם עד חורמה וננקום בעוצמה על היום השחור הזה שהם עוללו למדינת ישראל ולאזרחיה. כל המקומות שהחמאס מסתתר בהם, פועל מתוכם. נהפוך אותם לאיי חורבות. אני אומר לתושבי עזה, צאו משם עכשיו, כי אנחנו נפעל בכל מקום ובכל העוצמה.
The past days have been devastating for each and every Israeli. What we are witnessing are war crimes, blatant barbaric war crimes, slaughtering civilians, abusing hostages, taking babies from their mothers. There are no words to describe such savagery. Hamas's war crimes must be unequivocally condemned. This unimaginable atrocity must be condemned.
And now let's go across live to Israel. Joining me from Tel Aviv is India Today's managing editor Gaurav Sawant, who's on the ground now, reporting this morning from Israel. Gaurav, over to you. I can already hear gunshots. What are you hearing from your sources? What is the situation in Israel when the Prime Minister has said, Benjamin Netanyahu, that this is Israel at war? What are we expecting from Israel after that bloody, brutal assault and massacre of civilians?
So it's early in the morning here on Monday. Saturday is where 700 people were massacred, at least 700. That's the official figure. Unofficially, Israel says there are several people who are still unaccounted for. There is deep anger, there is deep anguish in this country. And this anguish and anger actually seeks retribution. They want Hamas, the perpetrators, to be punished. But here, at least in Israel, on ground, they say it's not just Hamas. It's actually go all the way and see the strings. They go back to Iran. That's the anger in this country. That's the threat Israel talks about. And when you talk of retribution, the kind of weapons that are now being used to target the Hamas leadership on ground, while people bury, while they perform the last rites of their loved ones, those who were killed in this massacre that took place, there is anguish. And of course, there is also a lot of fear, because while the government is saying in most of Israel, the Hamas terrorists have either been killed or they've gone back. But in some areas, the situation does remain tense even now. House to house, door to door, lane to lane clearance operations were on. And then beyond that, the task would be to once again set up that fence. So very, even through the night, we could see very heavy earth moving equipment, massive concertina wires and trucks with concrete. All of that was being sent towards the south, towards the borders, to once again erect the fence. And this time, the effort is to ensure that they're able to look deep across to know what's happening, so that the way they were caught napping this time, they were caught off guard this time, it shouldn't happen again. Pooja.
Gaurav, there has been an endless cycle of violence between Palestine and Israel, but what we saw on Saturday was unprecedented. Women being taken hostage, the bodies that were paraded as well, children who have been taken hostage, elderly women, families have been ripped apart, murdered in cold blood. All of this has been recorded on camera too. But amid all of this, what is the ground emotion like among the Israelis? Is that of shock? Is that of numbing fear also that you're also talking about? Because while, of course, the administration and the establishment in Israel will go ahead and, as you're calling it, the retribution will take place, what are the Israelis really feeling like at this moment about what the bloody assault that they faced on Saturday?
So right now we are live. We are coming from the city center in Tel Aviv. And here, there's massive police presence virtually in every corner. Now there are police personnel in large numbers, including around me where I stand right now. There are major restrictions in terms of what you can film, where you can film, what you can do. And yes, there is that apprehension. Yes, there is that fear right now. But then it's also retribution. People do want to ensure that their neighborhoods are safe again. And that fear, the fence that was there earlier, the threat would be either from drones or from rockets or even the threat which would come from tunnels. But this time, the fact that the Hamas terrorists came in large numbers, that was something that took Israel completely by surprise. And the effort is to ensure that something like this never happens again. It's still very, very early in the morning here in Tel Aviv. So at night, there were apprehensions. So even when we came in, the first thing we were told was, you should know where the nearest shelter is. In case there's a requirement, you need to immediately go into the shelter. But the focus right now remains one, south, that's where the operations against Hamas are going, and two, the apprehension in case the Hezbollah were to open the second front, on the Lebanon-Israel border. So even that is being secured very extensively. Point two. Point three, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, has made it very clear. There are three main targets. Clear the area of the south, fortify the south, ensure that the threat doesn't come from there, destroy Hamas, and also ensure that all borders are completely safe. So that's Israel's main focus right now.
Gaurav, but the world is also watching, and like you also mentioned, there is this constant thread and speculation coming in about the backing by Qatar and Iran. On the other side, US and UK have said that Israel has their complete support. Do you see this escalating? Because there are references coming in that the US warship is coming close to the border. Israel is also fighting against Lebanon's Hezbollah that is targeting fire at Israel. So clearly Israel feels cornered at this point, but it's prepared for a retribution. It's prepared to fight back and defend its citizens on the ground. But do you see the world powers also now starting to react and perhaps more involvement than the statements?
Okay. So give me a moment. The security here is telling us that we are in a secure zone and we need to come out of this secure zone. So thank you very much. I will step out. So that's the security here. And if I could just show you around early in the morning here, the city center where we are reporting from, naturally closer to a shelter. I now want to show you what this place looks like. A lot of construction happening here, as you can see. As day breaks, security personnel once again looking very closely at every individual here. Every individual here is checked, identity cards checked, and then other teams come in. You have the local police, you have private security, you also have the army that is now ensuring that this entire area is cleared up. So now I've come out of that secure zone and this is the city center.
You stay safe, Gaurav.
I could, once again tell you, you're absolutely right.
Go ahead, please finish your point.
You're
Gaurav,
absolutely
finish your point.
right. Israel has made it very clear that there will be consequences for the perpetrators. Right now, they're going after the Hamas, but should the Hezbollah and there was some symbolic in a way, some missile strikes that had taken place, rocket strikes that had taken place from the other side, but that was in a disputed zone. Should that escalate, then the conversation here is, since Iran is doing it, they will go after all the perpetrators in a much bigger way. But that is where America and other countries perhaps will play a much bigger role on the larger road ahead.